Purchase your raffle ticket today and win a new truck in our Drive Away for Education truck raffle.
Pickle, let's head on over to those phone lines over there, and let's bring in someone who knows this area very well. Mr. Garrett Sanders, sports director at KETK, Fox 51. Garrett, how are you?
I'm doing great. Ready to talk about East Texas football out here.
Let's do just that. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty football talk, we always like to learn a little bit more about our guests. And I did read up on you a little bit, so I think you're from the area. But give us a little bit of an elevator pitch. You know, who are you? Where are you from? And you know, how did you get this job there in the Piney Woods?
Yeah, I'm from Henderson out here. Played out here. We were terrible. I was Dickie Meeks was my coach my senior year. We went 1-9. We only beat Pine Tree. And then, of course, 3 years later, we dropped down in one state. So I feel like I was a building block of that state championship in 2010. But then I went to University of Texas at Austin during the Colt McCoy years.
Nice.
And so that was I got to see the end and the downfall of Texas football out there. But I always loved telling stories, loved sports. Wanted to do newspapers actually first, and then didn't really love that kind of writing style. Fell in love with the broadcast format. Came back out here, got a job as like a weekend reporter here at KETK, but always knew I wanted to do sports in the background. And so since then, kind of worked my way through, and now kind of running things here, and just love kind of being back in my home area, kind of telling the stories of our teams across here in East Texas.
Man, that's super cool. Just to be in that area too, and you know, growing up in that area and being able to cover that area as a job, that's got to be pretty cool. But
it's awesome.
Before we get into Texas high school football talk, there is a college matchup. We've already talked about it here on WTF, but there's a college football game down in the neck of your woods between SFA and Sam Houston State, potentially the last battle of the Piney Woods that we'll see in a while. So talk a little bit about what that rivalry, I guess, really means to the region, and it possibly being one of the last matchups in a while.
It means a lot out here. You know, when, you know, my brother, he went to SFA, and the thing about SFA, because that's the team we cover down there in Nacogdoches, is, you know, people outside kind of know about that rivalry, but those who are in it, and I've gotten to know people who are in it, it means a ton between both of those schools. And you hate to see, I mean, we've seen over the years with other in-state rivalries getting killed because of moving and things like that. And while on the national stage, even the statewide stage, a lot of people don't know about this one. This means a lot to people here in East Texas. And so I hate to see it go, though that being said, for the Lumberjacks, it hadn't really gone their way in 10 years now. They should have had them last year. They had a chance last year. We'll see what happens, but with Sam moving up, and of course, I think I was reading, I think you guys are writing about it, how, you know, Sam has, as a school, has just grown so much bigger. And it's just kind of separated, and it's good for those guys moved to Conference USA. This one actually makes sense why they wouldn't continue it, but I still hate it because a lot of people out here care a lot, and it will mean a lot to the Jacks if somehow they can pull this out on Saturday.
I was just going to say that just increases the heightened excitement, I'm sure, for this weekend. But before we get to that football game, obviously a lot of football games going on around your area. It seems like it's almost a guarantee that we're going to see you at state every single year, because there's always someone, whether you want to consider it the Carthage Bulldogs or, you know, Timpson obviously looking really good. When you take a look at the Piney Woods region and the high school football format, who do you think has the best chance to make it to AT&T Stadium come December?
Well, in 4AD2, you talked about Carthage, and not Carthage and Gilmer, but even more so, like those two teams are still playing at a high level this year, but the fact that China Spring has now moved out of there, I mean, you've lost one of those contenders that could not, I mean, they knocked them both out last year. You take those guys out. I think right now, from what I've heard from people who have talked about Carthage, I'm going to actually get to see them on Friday when they play Brownsboro over here for the first time in person, that Connor Cuff has such a command of that offense now. He was good last year. He's a senior this year. And it's just a football factory at Carthage. So unless something crazy happens, I don't see anything stopping them. And also what they're doing at Gilmer, what Caden has been able to do as a starter there at quarterback for Gilmer and those guys. I think you're probably going to see a rematch from a couple of years ago with those two teams. For you mentioned Timpson in 2A. Terry, you guys know, you've seen Terry Bussey plenty of times playing out there and what they've done. And of course, the problem for them has been Shiner. When they get there, are they going to be able to get past those guys? So I think those are the top ones. But Longview's on a mission, and I don't know if you guys have seen this at the 5A ranks. I saw someone point out that Longview looks like they're playing mad this year. He's got like 15. Coach King's got like 15 starters back. That's a well-oiled machine. And last week when they played Lancaster, that game did not go. I thought Longview would win. But with the amount of points the Tigers put on McKinney North the week before, and it was 74-7, I thought it was going to be a shootout. The fact that Longview was able to play that kind of defense against that kind of offense and win a tough game like that, I think speaks even more. So I think that, the Lobos, I think, are really primed to make a run to state this year.
Let's transition over to some of those players out in East Texas, and of course, there's a lot of talent out there. But to me, it feels like there's a lot of talent, especially at that wide receiver spot. So, what are some names that you think that people should know heading into the rest of this season?
Well, Jalen Hale's the obvious one at Longview, signing with the Crimson Tide, which, of course, Texas, we missed another one. But Jalen's great. He's, you talk to Coach King about the kind of guy he is, the way he plays, just a big play receiver out there for the Lobos. Then, of course, you've got Aaron Hampton, who is currently committed to Texas, if they can hold on to him, out in Dangerfield. And, of course, that team out there is just a track meet out there. It's so fun to watch those guys. And even here in Tyler, I think Montrell Wade for the Tyler Lions. They haven't gotten off the best start, but he is a big play receiver down the field. We have so much speed out here in East Texas. I've had people who come in and cover this area, and usually out of state, because Texas speed is different than anything else. But they'll come to East Texas, and they're like, I didn't know how fast it is. And a lot of these teams, some of these bigger teams, love to open it wide open. But those are some guys to really watch out for out here in our area.
So we've talked a lot about, obviously, there's the headliners with Longview and Carthage and Timpson and all that stuff. Are there any other storylines that you think really stick out that people across the state of Texas, when they think about the Piney Woods, should go, oh, yeah, that's something that I know about?
I think, even for me, actually, it's a team that I haven't got a chance to see yet. And I want to take a look at, because they're quietly undefeated right now, and if they win this week, going to set up a huge game next week. It's Winsboro. Now I got a chance to see them yet, but I know they're creeping up, and they're going to have a big showdown game with Mount Vernon, which is another great story out here. Mount Vernon last year got knocked out by Brock. I mean, what they're building out there in Mount Vernon is something special, but also Winsboro. I'm excited to see what those guys are doing out there, because they're kind of location where here in Tyler, we kind of get focused around the White House, the Chapel Hills, and things like that. But you go about an hour, northwest a little bit, and see some of those areas that we don't cover as much. I want to see what Winsboro's got going this year. But of course, I think Chapel Hill though is something special to look at, because once again this year, just like last year, they kind of stumbled out of the gate a little bit. Now, to be fair, they opened with Gilmer. I mean, they were tough. But what Coach Reardon's got there, if they do what they did last year, if they kick this thing in a high gear when it comes to the postseason, with the amount of talent and the experience now on that team, Chapel Hill is another team to really watch out for. And before last week, it was White House. Now, and because Nacogdoches upset them last week, but before that, Coach Kyle Westerberg in his first year out there at White House, went 2-8, and we're used to White House being a pretty consistent program out here. And now they did fall last week, but to start the season at 4-0 and kind of see that team coming around, I want to see what White House does as well. So we got a lot of things out there, but those are some teams to watch out for once we get into the postseason.
And I want to touch on the Timpson Bears for just a little bit before we move on from teams. Now, they're kind of the team that we're keeping our eye on down there in the Piney Woods. They've never made it to state, and it looks like that there might be a really good chance that the Bears could make it. What are you seeing from that team that looks like, hey, this team could have an actual shot this year?
I mean, Terry's the ultimate playmaker, and he's got that obviously more. And we talked about wide receivers. I'm blanking on their names now, but they have such weapons out there. I know they're young at O-line. We did a story with them before the season started. They're kind of young up front, but they have so many weapons. And with that guy back behind them, I think the big thing with Timpson is I'm not sure if anybody in the regular season or the early parts of the postseason can stop them. It's going to Shiner. Is Shiner going to be that same kind of team? I know that one of the brothers graduated, and we don't get to see them as much. That's what I'm so interested in. They've been knocking on that door so much. It just feels like the way they played against Dangerfield, who we know how good they are, and it's a higher classification, and they took care of them in that second half. That game showed me a lot with Timpson. It was like, okay, this is not just a good 2A school. This is a really good program, and I really would love to see them finally knock that door down. Guys like Bussy and Coach Thurwanger, they put so much work in over there, and they have such athletes. I think this could be the year they finally break that door down and get to state.
Yeah, I do too, and I'm telling you, man, you're going to enjoy seeing Vosky Howard, Terry's cousin, out there in the wide receiver spot. You're going to enjoy seeing him play. They are something special. Obviously, there's a ton of unbelievable rivalry games when you start talking about Beast Texas, but if you had to put your finger on which one that you enjoy covering the most, which one would that be?
Well, first I'm biased because I played in one of them with Henderson and Kilgore, which is always a great rivalry that I played in. Now, Kilgore has kind of separated themselves from Henderson lately, so it hasn't been as good of a game usually, but that's a game with a lot of history in it. Of course, here in town, you got the Rose City rivalry between Tyler and Tyler Legacy. And both those teams this year are still trying to find themselves, but that game was outstanding this year with triple overtime. It's one of those games here in town where no matter what the records are, it's always fun. And then you got Longview Lufkin, which I think the thing with Longview Lufkin is just historically great programs, because most rivalries are built around proximity. It's either in state, in city, or close by or whatever. Longview and Lufkin are not close to each other.
No.
That's a rivalry that is built on both programs being two of the best in the state. And I think when you look historically, I think Longview Lufkin really can set itself apart a lot, because it's not two teams that are close to each other, but it's a team with such history between each other. And you can just go down the list of the number of NFL guys those guys have brought out. So every time I get to see Longview versus Lufkin, it's something special. And especially when you're trying to shoot highlights on the sidelines, it's so hard because both sidelines have so many alums that are out there. You're having to weave your way around and stuff.
Man, that's got to be a really cool feeling. But I got to ask you, people love to debate about East Texas versus Piney Woods. Which teams are considered East Texas, which teams are considered Piney Woods. So in your opinion, what are some of those teams that could be considered maybe one way or the other?
So the way we talk about it here, a lot of times we say Piney Woods, we just kind of encompass everybody. But I think what people mean when they have this conversation, the way we say East Texas and we say deep East Texas. So how we kind of talk about this, kind of how we map things out here. East Texas, we kind of see as like Tyler and Longview and Jacksonville and that kind of area. The cutoff point is kind of weird, but I think maybe that cutoff could be like between Rusk and Alto. So I would say like Rusk and up would kind of be, and of course there's some merging. Of course, there's going to be some people that tell me, no, that's not how it is. But for me, I've always considered once you get past Rusk, you get into Alto towards Knack and Lufkin, that's where you would consider your deep East Texas, or a lot of people, when they start thinking, the Piney Woods and things like that. But that's kind of how we split things up around here, where when we're kind of looking at our coverage area and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's always been a debate, and
yes.
And no one gets more upset about it than people from East Texas.
No, that's the thing too.
Passion is big.
Yeah, even like preparing for this show, I'm like, is this Piney Woods or East Texas? Like I just didn't know.
Because I've seen some others, these statewide shows, they'll kind of split them up. Here's Piney Woods, here East Texas. Because for us, a lot of us is interchangeable out here. We'll say things like out here in these Piney Woods, because if you listen to Jeff Traylor, out in Gilmer, which would be, how many times have you heard him say, out here in these woods? That's what he's talking about. But Gilmer is not close to Lufkin. So a lot of us kind of consider it all kind of piney. I guess it's maybe the people in Tyler and stuff like, hey, we got pine trees too.
Right.
Exactly. Don't leave us out, guys.
Yeah. That's hilarious. It's interesting to hear it from your perspective too, just because you've grown up from the area and you probably know it better than anybody else does down there. But finally, before we let you go, we're big food people on this show. Pickle and I love to eat. Yes. So if we make it over to East Texas at any point this season or even next season, where would you recommend we have to stop to get some food before a football game?
Well, of course, you've got to stop over here in Tyler and grab some of the barbecue out here. And I'm like, and grab you something, Stanley's. I think that's the thing to go. If you're going to come to Tyler, you got to get some Stanley's barbecue. I know you guys have probably stopped by there before.
Yes.
It's it's kind of the staple and stuff. So that's really good. In Henderson, of course, we're going to have a barbecue tray. In Henderson, you got to go to Bob's Barbecue. Okay. Because Bob's, they hold it down. It's a little pricey, but it's worth it to go to Bob's. And so, those would be two of the places, especially out this way, if you're going to get some barbecue and stuff. those are the places I would always recommend out here in East Texas.
I love it.
Man, my stomach is rumbling
it's growling.
right now. It's growling. That sounds pretty good. Well, Garrett, thank you so much for taking the time to join us on here today, and good luck this season. And hopefully we can make it out your way at some point this season or very soon.
Absolutely love to have you guys.
There he goes. That was Garrett Sanders of KETK and Fox 51. You can follow him on Twitter. Listen to this handle. It's at Cowboy, COWBOY TD. Like Cowboy Touchdown. I love it. So go ahead and give him a follow on. Just give him a follow on Twitter because of his handle. That's cool. And we're big Cowboys gals on here, so that's why we like that. So go ahead and give him a follow for all your East Texas Piney Woods football news. And I think he does cover more sports than that as well. So go ahead and make sure you give him a like on some of his stuff on his Twitter page.
Everyone. So Stanley's is. You haven't been to Stanley's before, have you?
No, I don't think so.
Stanley's. Okay, Stanley's is fantastic. Sepp and Tepper will swear by the brother-in-law sandwich, which is really good. But I'm telling you, and I'm going to say this incredibly clear so it does not get confused with anything else, the Mother Clucker sandwich. It's a chicken sandwich. It is.
I think I've heard of that before.
Exceptional. Like, that's one of the best sandwiches I've ever had in my life. Hard stop. I get it every single time I go. It is so good. If you're going to Stanley's, do it. Get like a side of ribs and stuff like that. But I'm not going to say it again because I've said it once and it got it. But the Mother Chicken sandwich is very, very good.
It already gets 5 stars from me just from the
name. It's fantastic.
It kind of goes along with our show. So.
Yeah, exactly.
we need to eat some of those while on the show.
That's not a bad idea.
I'm thinking here.
Just take off TFT. It's like, hey, I gotta drive to Tyler real fast so I can bring back some sandwiches from Stanley.
Man, we're always thinking on the show, and it just makes me so happy. so happy.
Thanks so much for watching that video. If you would like more and to be notified when they come out, go ahead and click that subscribe button right down there. You can also watch Texas Football Today every day live at noon on TexasFootball.com, Facebook, Twitch, and right here on YouTube. For more of the best coverage of Texas football in the Lone Star State, go to TexasFootball.com/subscribe.